All right, hey guys, we hope we're live. Actually, that's fine. Should be fine. Well, we'll wait till so yeah. Hey guys, I hope we're live, and we're gonna be using the big microphones. I got my camera. I can zoom it in some more. We got 12 manual.
No, they fly. They find them on boats.
Hope everything is good. Audio input is
The wind.
This should be the right audio input, guys. Now we should be on right audio input, but once we start using the big speakers, we'll see how it goes. If this live stream doesn't work, then we'll have to record and maybe upload later, or we'll see what happens. For now, I'm just going to keep an eye on the live stream, and people are already waiting. Volume is low. Volume should be better. Give me a volume check, but then
Test.
yeah, just give people a second, and then we have to get the show on the road here. Sounds better. Yep. We're now using Rode. Mine is a little close to me, maybe, but it's okay. Yeah, you know what? No, don't hold it. Okay, cool. All right. So, you want me to introduce you?
Hello, everyone. My name's Joe Says.
Oh, no, not to them. To them.
Sure. I can introduce you.
All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you for coming out. Hope the audio is good everywhere, including the live stream. And thank you for coming hanging out in Bitcoin Lounge with Morning Joe with Joe Says. Also, shout out to Emily, which you people on live stream can't see because of the damn tree. But Emily is sponsoring the Bitcoin Lounge here at Porcfest, and thank you guys. And here's Joe.
Hello, testing. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Joe Sass, CEO of Emily USA Inc. And yep, full friend of tone. So yeah, we're just gonna kind of go through whatever we're gonna go through today. Don't really know the exact agenda for this.
Yeah, well, I guess I can ask you some questions, and then we're gonna mostly open it up to Q&A because there's a lot of people here at Porcfest that are very curious about Bitcoin, what it is, how it works. And this is why this Bitcoin Lounge is here. You can also pick up a hardware wallet in order to securely store your Bitcoin. Joe, how you doing this morning? This is your second Porcfest, isn't it?
Yeah,
You like it here?
I actually love it here. This is like a super sick event. But I actually want to see like how many people are like definite Bitcoiner savvy or definite Bitcoin savvy, or like I guess maybe the next thing is like, you know, how many people just don't know Bitcoin. All right, cool. All right. So we're gonna have to probably start with an elevator pitch here and what Bitcoin is and describe that. Do you want to take that elevator pitch, or do you want me to, or do you want to critique my?
Go ahead. Why don't you do the elevator pitch? This is your lounge. Thank you so much, Bitcoin Motorist.
Yeah.
For
you can't have coffee and Joe without actually coffee. Tom.
Yes. Got my coffee. There's Motorist. Surfer Jim is lurking around here somewhere as well. We're gonna have room for one more chair here, so we're gonna be interviewing people.
Looking forward. All right. So so to those that are just like maybe just heard the word Bitcoin, the way that I try to explain Bitcoin to people that need to understand it or like just don't have an understanding is we all know what gold is, right? And we all know that its value is derived from its scarcity and its difficulty to acquire. Yeah, it's not like leaves on a tree where you can just, you know, get millions and millions of them as you want. So basically, the way I describe Bitcoin is it's like a digital form of gold. Gold is a scarcity program as designed by the laws of physics, where Bitcoin is a scarcity program as designed by the laws of a program that are pretty much mirroring the laws of gold. So that's my quick elevator pitch for how to compare Bitcoin to gold. So to me, the advantage of Bitcoin over any other money that's ever existed in human history is that it also brings with it decentralization, which means that you can transact without censorship. You can transact, you know, you're no longer under constant financial surveillance. You're now a series of numbers and letters as opposed to a first and last name and a social security number. So now you're able to participate in the market as a free market participant, and basically it kind of moves faster than the law. So it's kind of like your voice is not your vote, your money is your vote. And if you're voting with your money on doing whatever you want to do with it, then that kind of changes the paradigm on how humans have been ruled by sovereign elites over the centuries. So that's my long, I guess, elevator pitch for Bitcoin.
All right. So my short one is, we have T-shirts made too. It's a unconfiscatable, censorship-resistant store of value, and because Bitcoin has three properties that allow it to compete with the traditional financial system, and it's had these properties since pretty much 2010, and nothing else before or since Bitcoin has these properties. One of them is unconfiscatability. It's the first asset in human history that you can store in your head, and no one can confiscate it. Now, you hear all these articles saying, the feds confiscated Bitcoin. That's because it wasn't properly secured and it wasn't properly stored, going back to the days of Silk Road, where the feds confiscated 400,000 plus Bitcoin. When you store your Bitcoin with a third party or just on your laptop and don't properly secure it, then of course someone else can steal it, including hackers. So it's your responsibility to properly secure Bitcoin. And when that happens, it becomes an unconfiscatable asset. And people don't realize how powerful that is. As a personal example, when my family was leaving Soviet Union in the very late 80s, I was already alive, and we were only allowed to leave that country permanently with $100 per family member. That's all you're allowed to leave with, and the rest is kept by the government. So good luck starting your new life on $500 for our family. And in 1989, 1990, $500 bought you more, which brings us to the third property of Bitcoin, that it doesn't inflate. The supply doesn't inflate, so it actually retains its value and appreciates over time. That's its gold-like quality. And that second part is censorship-resistant value transfer. You can now send something of value to anyone in the world without a middleman in the way of your transaction. And if you've ever sent an international bank wire, you know how annoying that is, and Bitcoin gets it done in a few minutes. For some people, it's 10 minutes, sometimes it's an hour, not a big deal, considering I usually spend over an hour on the phone or at the bank trying to do an international wire. All right, those are the elevator pitches. We want to open up to questions right away, or we want to talk a little more? I can give you some more interviews. Yeah, I feel like you guys came here not to just listen to us. You came here because you have questions. Yeah, and we're not going to beat around the bush. We'll be interviewing people here all day, so come on back, and including tomorrow. But what do you think,
Yeah,
Joe?
don't hesitate to ask questions. We actually want to answer questions. This is a lounge. We're chilling. So raise your hand, ask your question.
If anyone has a question, why don't you just have them come up and sit next to you guys and ask a question? We'll bring another chair.
Because the mic won't stretch. So if you have a question, come on up. We'll put a chair right here. You can ask around the mic. Also, if you don't mind being on camera.
I can
we
walk
have
this up. I can
we
walk
do
this
have
up right here.
Yeah, you can walk it up a little bit.
So if you have a question, you want to step up.
Oh, Joe, so you're the focal point of the camera. So as you move, the camera's going to follow you, which is good, actually.
So this gentleman had a question. Do you want to step up or do you want to ask him?
I think Rich Paul is going to get out of jail ever.
Repeat the question.
Rich Paul is going to get out of jail ever. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not familiar with that name.
Neither am I. We're
Known as nobody.
He's one of the crypto six. He's one of the crypto six with Ian Freeman and.
Oh, the Ian Freeman case.
Yeah.
So I just found out about the Ian Freeman case very, very recently, like a month ago or something, and I don't know. I didn't dive right into it. How many people didn't Ian just get out recently on bail?
They all got out except for Rich Paul.
Oh, everyone got out except for Rich Paul. So they're accused of running a money services business, as far as I understand it. Basically, they were buying and selling Bitcoin and profiting, basically selling Bitcoin with a fee and buying Bitcoin potentially with a fee as well, and profiting on those transactions, which is money transmission. So they were supposed to register with FinCEN, which they didn't.
They're probably supposed to do a ton of things. They probably needed a ton of stuff. And, to answer your question, do I believe in, I think this is kind of the root of like what that you're getting at, or what I see is Bitcoin should be able to be exchanged between two people for whatever deal that they decide. And, that's up to them. I don't know enough about this case, but I mean, it sucks that someone's in jail for essentially shadow banking or operating without all these necessary licenses, which, you know, are kind of messy and expensive, and they take a long time to acquire. So I understand why people engage in peer-to-peer transactions with Bitcoin. So I think it's crazy going to jail for a long time for something like that.
Right. Historically, so far, all these kinds of cases, they just get people to plead guilty, and they get like an average of 2-year sentence. Like this happened to Charlie Shrem, this happened to a few other people, and they're usually out in 12 to 14 months. And they're not like in a hardcore prison. It's usually like some of them don't even have a fence. Like it's white collar. Like Charlie Shrem was there with programmers from Bernie Madoff hedge funds, so he got to teach them all about Bitcoin for when they get out. So that's what usually happens. I mean, unless you want to try to, you know, prove a point against the government and go to court, then they're going to try to put you away for 30 years. So that's the risk, right? Do you want to try to fight them? And if you lose, you can get 20 or 30. Or do you just want to say, yeah, you're right, I did it? And technically, according to the law, like, you know, the government, I mean, it's a bad law. Like the law needs to be changed. I mean, that's the issue. Like I personally hate money laundering and KYC laws, but, you know, you got to get, you know, people got to run for office and try to change these nasty laws on money.
I hope he gets out. I hope he gets out soon. I don't think anyone should rot in jail for doing something like this. I think everyone should be able to do this freely, and that's on the person. So yeah. I'm with you.
It's obvious what our opinions are, but what's going to happen, we have no idea. It depends on his lawyers to be. That's not on his lawyers. It depends on, you know, how much of a statement he wants to try to make against the government. All right, we got one more question if you want to.
We had a few.
Yeah.
You want me to stand?
You just come over and speak into the mic, but also speak into our mic as well. So
I'll just hang out with you. What's up, man?
So I'm Dominic, by the way. Can you talk a little bit about Lightning? I know that one of the objections to Bitcoin at present is that it's kind of with like the payment fees and speed, it's almost obsolete. So can you talk about Lightning and how that combats that issue?
I'd love to. I actually love starting my Bitcoin educating with Lightning. A lot of people kind of see Bitcoin as one thing or another. They see Bitcoin as either a medium of exchange or a store of value. Few people want to put it as both. But the Lightning Network is the ability for Bitcoin payments and transactions to scale to a massive number of people transacting simultaneously. So a medium of exchange argument is basically saying everyone can go to Starbucks using their Lightning wallet, which is Bitcoin, and pay for their Starbucks coffee at the same time and have little to no impact on on-chain fees. There's no impact on-chain. And so, yeah, the Lightning Network is basically the rails upon which Bitcoin will be, you know, hyper adopted. So Lightning is kind of where you need to start your Bitcoin education to understand if I'm going to spend Bitcoin, do I want to pay $10 or, you know, $20 or whatever, you know, during a high congestion time in the mempool. You could pay a big fee, but obviously if you're paying for a cup of coffee or something for $5, you don't want to pay for you know, 2 cups of coffee in the transaction as well. So the Lightning Network is one of the most important things to understand about Bitcoin. It's the medium of exchange element to me take like squared. Bitcoin is already a medium of exchange. It's just a matter of whether or not you want to pay the transaction fee. But the Lightning Network basically makes it so it's instantaneous. You turn your head, the transaction's already gone through, and it's oftentimes free. If you're using the same wallet as your friend, say for example, Blue Wallet. But there are some things I think some gray areas that we should get into with Lightning. Tony, do you want to take any of those?
Sure. So, and it's funny, right before you asked the question, Dominic was it, right? Yeah. Just before you asked the question, someone in the live chat is like, how come you guys never talk about Lightning? And I mean, I have a somewhat borderline popular YouTube channel, and I don't talk about Lightning on that channel.
I just wanted to say something real quick, Joe.
So we will do a deep dive on Lightning on Bitcoin 102, which I believe is at 2 p.m. today. So if you have your specific deep dive minutia Lightning questions, feel free to ask them then.
Who's doing that?
That's going to be Joe, me, and I think we're going to get Bitcoin Core developer Ben Woosley will join us for that one as well. And I kind of will help you how to get started if you want to run your own Lightning node.
Yeah, there's a reason why my name wasn't just dropped. So this goes back to my question, right? So I don't talk about Lightning much on my channel because I honestly don't use it yet. And the reason I don't use it yet is that every time Bitcoin fees get expensive and every time transactions take long, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start using Lightning. And then all of a sudden, like the mempool clears up and Bitcoin transactions are cheap and fast again. So I've never really had the need. And also, I don't make like copy transactions with Bitcoin. So I just personally have not had a huge need to use it. And it does bother me that I should be teaching people to use it. And Lightning will be the dominant means of micropayments and small payments for small things. But at the moment, Bitcoin is fighting a bigger battle than buying cups of coffee. And I try to spend most of my energy and my time educating people on the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is getting, as many sats as possible, as many sats as you can afford to lose. But with every year that goes by, the probability of Bitcoin going to zero becomes less and less. That's why Bitcoin gets more and more expensive. More people trust it. So it's a trade-off of trust. That's why the Bitcoin price goes up. So I just spend more time fighting the bigger battle of getting people off putting some of their savings into Bitcoin instead of using it for small transactions. But in the near future, that narrative is going to change. That people will be using it for small transactions as well, because everyone likes to pick on Bitcoin that, well, it's not private enough, it's not fast enough, it's not, transactions aren't cheap enough. But that's because Bitcoin is innovating at all those things at the same time. When you focus on one little thing, you can get that little thing done. Like when you create an altcoin that focuses on fast transactions, yeah, you can do it, but it's not secure. It's not a store of value. It's not safe. It's not decentralized. Like, you give up everything else to make that one little thing seem better. It's not even better. It's an illusion of better. And you can promote the hell out of that one little thing, but eventually Bitcoin will catch up because it's innovating everything at once. It's innovating its smart contract layer. It's innovating its speed and low cost. It's innovating its privacy. It's innovating them all. So when you innovate them all, you innovate more slowly, and also you can't move fast and break things. Because if Bitcoin's broken, all blockchains and all cryptos pretty much die to me. If I lose my life savings in Bitcoin, why would I put it in any other crypto? I'll put it in the S&P 500, which always goes up for the last 100 years. We can talk about why. That's my second best store of value, but a discussion for another day.
So I hope we got to you, Dominic. Did you feel sufficiently answered there? Like, was there anything? I see you back there, by the way. Dominic, do you feel like we kind of hit the Lightning Network in enough detail for right now?
Yeah. So basically, it's not really.
Okay. If you have a question, I'll happily repeat it.
Look, basically, as an elevator, Lightning is very important, but it's not necessary. That's why the focus on it is not too high for me at the moment, but next year it probably will be.
I'm gonna just counter that and say I think maybe it might not be as necessary right now, but to me, Lightning Network is like Bitcoin. Everyone in planet Earth needs to be able to spend Bitcoin at the same exact moment, and the program needs to work. So to me, Lightning Network is one of the most important things, and I love using it. I use it as often as I can. Every time there's a boxing match, I'll throw down a couple thousand satoshis on a fight. I don't like to bet, but then you can exchange that wealth between your friends, and it just moves this in the blink of an eye. So I personally love Lightning Network. I think it's been around. It's ready. According to the people I've spoken to who are much smarter than me, they say, look, Bitcoin is ready for the world. The world is not ready for Bitcoin. Lightning is ready to scale for massive numbers, like 100x what Bitcoin on chain can do. So Lightning is creating, just an additional ability for Bitcoin to be ready for when the world needs it. And I often say you're either coming into Bitcoin voluntarily or you're coming in kicking and screaming, hopefully voluntarily. Yes, sir. Front, and then we'll go to you, sir.
Do you have a guess on when the mining will finish for Bitcoin?
approximately 2140 is what it's estimated. Is the estimated year when the last Bitcoin will be mined.
That's a trick question. Mining will never be finished. Like even after all the Bitcoin is mined, mining will be as strong as ever because they'll make money from the transaction fee.
Yeah, there's still money to be made mining, but the last Bitcoin as a block reward subsidy will be mined approximately in 2140. Yes, sir, in the back. Oh, is this gentleman with the vest on first? Yeah.
If I have Bitcoin on an exchange and I want to take possession of my keys and I have them and I'm confident I have the keys, why do I need a hardware wallet?
So he's asking if I have Bitcoin on an exchange and I have the keys, why do I need a hardware wallet?
Right, because having the keys on a paper wallet or
That's a contradiction. If
Yeah.
your Bitcoin is on an exchange, you don't have the keys, the exchange has them.
Yeah.
I get it, right. So I want to take possession of the keys.
So you
If
need
I've
to
got
take.
them on granite and I've got them etched in stone and I'm comfortable with that and it's simple and obvious, why do I need a hardware wallet? I'm confused about
No, so if you have a Bitcoin exchange account, let's say you're using generic AmericanExchange.com to buy your Bitcoin as your on-ramp. That's a custodial service. They have to apply for money transmitter licenses. They're KYCing you, and you're on the grid. Now, you might even for some exchanges you might have to, like on Coinbase. There's Coinbase and there's Coinbase Pro. Pro is more of the exchange. Coinbase.com is more where you buy and hold your Bitcoin or whatever crypto. So I wouldn't even keep my Bitcoin on something like Coinbase because that's not really an exchange. But if you do have your backups and stuff, that's still your identity tied to your Bitcoin, which is what you need to get separate. You need to distance your name from your Bitcoin. So yeah, there aren't exchanges. I haven't seen an exchange that, internationally speaking, even I haven't seen yet an exchange that is non-custodial. In other words, giving you the ability to generate your own wallet.
Sorry, I'm not asking my question.
Okay.
Well, I've created a paper wallet.
So you created a
to
paper wallet.
transfer all of my money
Okay.
from the exchange
Okay.
to my paper wallet. I've got my paper wallet. Now I have the key. Right?
Yes.
Why do I need a hardware wallet? In addition,
Okay. No. That's great. That's
Okay.
that's
The
a good
question is,
question.
if I have a paper wallet, and I have the
Load it-
keys to
load
the
it up.
paper wallet, why do I need a hardware wallet? You don't, but it's a trade-off, right? So if you have your paper wallet and you have a backup key to that paper wallet, in a way it's more security if you don't trust a hardware wallet manufacturer, but in a way it's also less security if someone finds that paper wallet. At least with a hardware wallet, there's some additional protections, but those protections come with the trade-off of trusting the hardware wallet manufacturer. And then there's also a matter of spending $150 on a hardware wallet, which some people with $1 million in Bitcoin still refuse to do.
Yeah, there's kind of a prime example of this where, like, I don't know a single Bitcoiner actually interested in using the Ballet wallet by Bobby Lee. It's a wallet where they generate the private key on the wallet itself. They have one half of the process to make the device and one half of the process to stamp it with the private key. So it's like, as a Bitcoiner, if you've done your due diligence, you put it in your own hands. Why do you need a hardware wallet? You really don't. But I do, as best practices, recommend to Bitcoiners that they don't put all the Bitcoin in one place.
There's basically 100 different ways of how to store your Bitcoin, with the worst one being letting somebody else hold it for you. And it's debatable if that's your friend or that's an exchange. It's also debatable if it's a regulated exchange or an unregulated exchange, right? It's a trade-off. So let's say your Bitcoin is stored in an unregulated exchange. What is the risk? Well, in an unregulated exchange, the probability of the person running the exchange running away with the Bitcoin is a little bit higher, even though this has happened on regulated exchanges as well. On the other hand, the probability of your Bitcoin being frozen are higher on a regulated exchange. Let's say your Bitcoin is at Coinbase, and the probability of Brian Armstrong running away with your Bitcoin is very, very small. But the government sending Brian Armstrong a subpoena with your name on it, saying freeze this guy's Bitcoin and give it to us, is very, very high. That risk doesn't exist in an unregulated exchange because the government doesn't even know who to send the subpoena to. But the risk of that guy running away with the Bitcoin is a lot higher. So they're all trade-offs.
Same thing happens if you let your brother hold your keys because he's better at, security, or you're, don't have your own home to hide them. And some of the better ways of storing them is with a hardware wallet, or with a paper wallet, or with a brain wallet. If you're the kind of person that's afraid of writing anything down, even on a metal plate, and then hiding the metal plate, whether it's in a safety deposit box or in a hole in the ground, somebody can find that metal plate. So for those people that are paranoid to even write down their private key, you can try to memorize it and hope you don't, die or hit your head and forget it.
Yeah.
So it's really up to you, and everything has a trade-off of security versus accessibility versus risk of theft.
Yeah, I just recommend don't keep all your, apples in one basket. With Bitcoin, this thing's going to the moon. We all know 10 years from now what it could look like with Bitcoin. We don't know how we'll get there, but we know what the future will look like in terms of a Bitcoin dominant society. So I do encourage people, look, even if you want to split up 0.01 Bitcoin into 3 wallets, that's more valuable to me because, it's going to prevent you from, potentially losing a fortune in the future 10 years from now.
One quick thing on the hardware wallets. We call them hardware wallets, but a more accurate name for them would be signing devices or keychains, because your Bitcoins aren't actually stored on the wallet. They're stored on the network. So the hardware wallet helps you manage your keys and generate new keys and generate backup seed phrases. So you could store your Bitcoin on a paper wallet, but if you lose the paper wallet, you lose the Bitcoin. But with the hardware wallet, you have a backup phrase. And if you want to, you have your seed phrase, which is your backup. And if you want to add more funds to your hardware wallet, so if you put some money on your hardware wallet and you want to add more later, it's much better to do it to a hardware wallet because you get to generate a brand new address rather than just reusing the same address with the paper wallet over and over again. And also, again, the hardware wallet makes it easier. If you do need to spend the coins, it also is a lot easier to do with a hardware wallet. But these are very, very important security questions, and there's a lot of trade-offs with using hardware wallets and things. And so there's a lot of positive. Yeah, there's a lot of controversy with it. So yeah, and if you want to come talk to me afterwards, we can go over some of the trade-offs and the details between hardware wallets, paper wallets, and other storage solutions.
And we can also run more stuff on that. The gentleman in the blue shirt.
One last thing. There are all kinds of other trade-offs. For example, the more times you access your Bitcoin or your savings, your cold storage Bitcoin, like you're paranoid that you're gonna forget like the password, right? So like the more times you access or the more times you run to your safe that's hidden somewhere and open it, the higher the probability that someone's gonna watch you do it, right? So the more time you access something, the higher the risk that someone could put spyware on your laptop with a keylogger so they can see what password you're typing. But on the flip side, if you don't access it often enough, you may forget how to access it, right? So they're all trade-offs. Also what Joe said, it's a trade-off. You have all your Bitcoin savings, you want to put it in one place, so you only have to remember one way of accessing it. If you split it into 8 ways, now you got to remember 8 ways of accessing that Bitcoin. So again, everything is a trade-off. It's what you're comfortable with. There is no best solution.
Okay, so
actually, he had his hand up like way in the beginning.
Well, the question changed throughout the conversation, but I mean, how secure is a Bitcoin ATM? I've seen these things, and like that's an exchange, right? That's a regulated exchange. So somebody's going to know that you're pulling Bitcoin and converting it into cash. Somebody that a bad actor that you don't want to know, right? Like, is that how that works?
It's not necessarily a bad actor.
Okay, question. Oh, we got to repeat the question because we are live stream. So the question is, how secure are Bitcoin ATMs? But by security, you mean man in the middle, or like a hacker, or the government?
If I take my Bitcoin, right, and I walk into this Bitcoin ATM,
you're selling Bitcoin.
Well,
it doesn't matter, selling or buying.
Good, selling, buying, or trying to pull cash.
Right.
Trying to convert it to cash.
Right.
How safe is that? That's obviously a regulated exchange, right? Because cash is changing hands.
There's different laws for ATMs. Like just for factual purposes here, you might only have to report, or they might only have reporting criteria for greater than, let's say, round numbers, $1,000.
Well, $9,999.
Well, there's different, right? So there's a couple of things. First of all, every state has their own rules and regulations on these kinds of transactions, right? I don't think there's like some states have identical rules, but I would say there's at least a dozen different rules based on which state your ATM is in. And we're only talking about America. Different countries have different rules. Then there are different rules for identifying you as you're in front of the ATM machine. I think Canada had like some of the most, I don't know if it is still today, but Canada had some of the most relaxed rules where up to a few $1,000s, Canadian dollars, there really was no KYC at all. Like they didn't need to know anything about you, right? But a lot of ATMs, I mean, they do have the cameras. I mean, they're built like regular ATMs. A lot of them ask for your phone number, but you could always, I guess some people use a burner. They do take a picture of you. You can come up to you wearing a hat and glasses and a mask. So there is some usefulness for these masks that we all have to wear. So you could kind of protect yourself from the camera. You can kind of use a burner, and you will be able to use it for small transactions. As transactions get bigger, you may have to, stick your driver's license into it. You may have to use your passport into it, right? And that doesn't automatically get reported to the U.S. government, but the company itself keeps the data, and they mostly keep the data saying that, like I know stories where people use ATM machines and then bad things happen, and then the cops find out what that person did. They follow him on CCTV cameras, and it's like, hey, this guy went to this ATM machine. Let's find out. Let's get some pictures from the ATM machine. So they hit up the manufacturers. So again, everything is a trade-off how much you're buying and like what you're going to be using it for. And rules are completely different for every single ATM. It depends on what jurisdiction the ATM is in.
For the most part, I recommend if you want to buy Bitcoin, go to meetups. Find local Bitcoin community meetups, create them, get other similar minds involved, and someone might want to sell and someone might want to buy.
It's not that
resource for that?
not.
Is there some sort of resource?
I mean, there used to be what's called local
yeah.
Bitcoins, but there's a lot of crackdowns on that.
Local Bitcoin.
Look, if you are buying Bitcoin with money that you've earned legally, you really, as far as I know, don't have anything to worry about. It's like no different than buying gold. There's a silver dealer right there, right? Yeah. So you walk up to him with cash, and there they are. You walk up to him, he's got some gold too. I mean, right. And like you walk over there with cash to buy gold or silver. Now, I'm sure he'll take a credit card payment, maybe. Hey, you take credit card payments or cash only? Silver guy. You take credit card payments or cash only?
Cash, check, or Zelle.
Cash, check, or Zelle, right? So if you go to him and you use Zelle, it's the same thing, right? I mean, like your name is there. You're sending him money from a bank account, right? Checks, same thing. Your name is on it. But if you pay him cash, like he's not going to know who you are. Bitcoin is no different, right? If you're going to buy it through the regular financial system, including a Bitcoin ATM, then you're buying your Bitcoin is registered to you as you bought it. If you use cash, just like buying silver, then treat it like silver or gold.
Yeah. Go to meetups like this. You'll make friends. You'll find more and more and more stuff. I know the guy right behind you, Dominic. Had a question?
So admittedly, I'm a bit of a Luddite. What exactly is the concept of hardware wallet? Is it literally a physical object?
So what exactly is a hardware wallet is your question, kind of generally speaking? Or?
Yes.
Okay. So generally speaking, someone might be grabbing one. Imagine a little thumb drive type device. That's basically what a hardware wallet is. But again, Bitcoin never leaves the network. It never leaves the network. All this is a little device that stores your private keys. And when you successfully prove that you are the one that can access these private keys, then your Bitcoin is accessible on the network, and then you can transact with it. But it's basically something the size of
It's the size of a thumb drive.
You can get them as small as a thumb
Size of a
drive.
thumb
I've
drive.
seen them the size of a small little calculator. Just cold cards a little bigger, tracers. A thumb drive.
Some of them the size of a credit card.
I've seen
or a
some
business
so
card.
small. It's literally just a small, tiny little thing you slip on in half of the USB input, and then it's like a little chip that you can hide that behind just about anything in the world. You can hide that, tape that under anything.
I was gonna. So the purpose of a hardware wallet is so that your Bitcoin isn't stored on something that's permanently connected to the internet. For example, When you have Bitcoin on your cell phone, your cell phone is always in your pocket. So that has potentially two problems. One, how many of you have ever lost a cell phone? Oh, all right.
Or broke.
Yeah, or fully broke. Right? So that could be a problem if your Bitcoin is on that cell phone that you carry around with you. So that's one of the reasons why people prefer hardware wallets. The other is when your Bitcoin is on a cell phone, it's always connected to the internet. When it's on a hardware wallet, it's only connected to the internet when you plug in the wallet. And some of them, you actually kind of never connected to the internet. You plug it in, you get the signature, then you disconnect, and then you use that signature on a computer. So it's just a way to keep your Bitcoin offline, and it's also a way to leave your Bitcoin not on your body at all times. Because if you are traveling through an airport, an international airport, and you have a Bitcoin hardware wallet on you, and you get searched, and they know it's a Bitcoin hardware wallet, you may have a little bit of a problem. Because they may try to demand that you open up that hardware wallet. Now, you can claim that you forgot the password, right? But it becomes an issue where they say, well, we know this is a Bitcoin hardware wallet, and you're not allowed to travel with more than $10,000. That's technically an international law. You can fight it on a domestic
I think that would depend on which country considers it currency and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, all laws are different, but that's the thing. Like if you're traveling with a cell phone and you happen to get stopped, and people here at Porcfest have a higher probability of getting stopped because of our lifestyles. So if they search your cell phone, again, debatable whether that's legal or not. Speaking of that, I don't know if you guys know that if you have biometrically protected your cell phone, which means it's your face or your fingerprint, it's a lot easier for the authorities. Let me not, don't quote me as law, but I've read legal arguments where because it's biometric, the government has the ability to force your DNA. Like if you are accused of a crime, they can get your DNA. So biometric on your cell phone works the same way. But if you protect your cell phone with a pin that's in your head, they don't have the legal means of forcing thoughts out of your head. But they do have the legal means to force you to put your thumbprint to unlock your cell. So you may want to consider password protecting your cell phone with a pin instead of a thumbprint, or both. It depends how much security you want for your cell. So it's kind of like the same thing. Like if they find a Bitcoin app on your cell phone, they may, hold you for a long time and try to get you to unlock it. So maybe it's better not to travel with all your Bitcoin. And a hardware wallet, lets you keep it at home. Though technically it's not on the device. Technically it's in the blockchain. The device just allows you to access it.
Sir, occupy mine.
Yeah, with regard to KYC and AML laws, I was just curious, do you guys recommend using any kind of like a Bitcoin tumbler or a program to help obfuscate the chain of transactions with Bitcoin?
So the question is with the
Careful on the legal advice on this one.
with the AML KYC laws in place, what's the best way to, get Bitcoin? Is kind of what you're saying?
More or less, or if you bought it off of a KYC exchange,
Uh-huh.
how do you
Yeah,
get it
so
private?
Bitcoin or due diligence, this is just the technology here that we're talking about. Laws are laws, but Bitcoin is technology, right? You can buy your Bitcoin on Coinbase.com. They tag you and they send your information to the FBI, the IRS, every freaking, people that they can, every regulatory agency they can. Now, where that trail will end is in a coin join transaction. Effectively, by whirling your coins, a blockchain forensics firm will not be able to trail that your Bitcoin all the way from point A to point B. It's scattered amongst tons of other transactions and so forth. So I think that part of Bitcoin or due diligence is, I know a lot of people are new here to Bitcoin, but it's a lot of important stuff. You need to understand the Lightning Network and you need to understand coin joining. You always should be whirling your coins. Your coins should never be tied to your name. And if you use your coins, you need to whirl them again. You need to get them off the grid and stay off the grid to keep it that way.
All right, so man, I gotta bring the law. On my YouTube channel, we used to do a podcast called Bitcoin Law Review. So we would talk about all this legal stuff with lawyers.
And so here's the thing, right? Like Bitcoin tumblers, coin joins, inherently they're not illegal. Like VPNs are inherently not illegal. And inherently they're not illegal. And same thing with, for example, like programs that, let's say, guess a password, right? So you forgot your password, and then you get this program that lets you type in, what you think that password might be, and then it just starts like guessing like 1,000,000 passwords a second based on, what you think your password might be, and it could like check numbers. But like if you advertise that program, hey, this is a good way for you to recover your own password in case you kind of forgot it. That's fine. But if you start advertising, hey, this is a good way for you to break other people's passwords, now it's a problem. So it depends on how you use it and what you use it for. A lot of regulated places that you send Bitcoin into may not accept it if they've just come out of a tumbler, because they have ways of knowing if it came out of a tumbler. Now, in reality, the dollar bills in your pocket are supposed to be fungible. There's a reason for that. Like I heard a story, I'll give credit to Andreas Antonopoulos on this one because that's how I heard it from, where like back in the 70s or 80s, the government came up with this machine that would check how much cocaine residue is on a $100 bill. And they wanted every single store to use this machine. And if the bills that people are coming in to pay for groceries with have too much cocaine on them, they can't accept those $100 bills. And the government realized real quick that that's a huge problem, and like the U.S. economy could collapse because now you would have two different values of a $100 bill, and that's insane. So they realized that that's crazy. So your $100 bills are supposed to be fungible. Like it doesn't matter if the person paying for this coffee right now used that $100 bill in an illicit transaction. But for some reason in Bitcoin, that's a problem. So hopefully one day, every single Bitcoin transaction goes through some kind of a tumbler, not to hide illegal transactions, but because it makes the economy better. And the US government knows this because they've experimented this on their own money, and they realize that this makes no sense. So it should also make no sense for Bitcoin. But for now, not that many people use them. And because not everybody uses these kinds of tumblers, it makes it look like they're only used after or before some kind of criminal activity. So once again, going back to my earlier statement, that everything in Bitcoin evolves and updates at the same time. Nothing is more important than something else. Micropayments are not more important than privacy. Privacy is not more important than making sure Bitcoin remains unconfiscatable and store of value. Everything gets improved slowly and kind of equally. So for now, you have to go through some hoops to tumble the Bitcoin, but eventually it's just going to be inherent in almost every transaction other than government to government transactions. And that's fine. As long as every single person is using them, there's nothing they can do because they can't assume that everyone's a criminal as much as they try.
100%. Okay, so we still don't really have like a huge agenda right now. I know there were some more hands earlier. Does anyone have any questions they want to throw at us? Sir in the hoodie? Yep. Yeah, red hat.
Yeah, we'll repeat the question. 6.6 trillion what?
Liquid amount. Like, so
6.6 trillion liquid amount of what?
Okay.
Okay, so
okay, so he's asking, how do you know, with all these assets in the world, cash, global liquidity of estimated at, 6 trillion or something, what you're saying, and yeah, gold's market cap somewhere around 10 trill, housing, I think is what, 150 or so trill across the globe, or not housing, but property. There's tons of assets, and how do you, So I think your question, as I understood it earlier, was how is there effectively a value assigned to these things when there's market manipulation of the fiat, the native fiat? Is that kind of where you were going? Yes. Yeah. If you look at a graph of gold over time from 1900 or 1913 or whatever, and you look at a graph of the dollar since the same period of time, the dollar's gone down, gold's gone up. Houses have gone up. The number of industries have gone, up relative to the dollar decreasing. A lot of luxury goods tend to stay relatively flat though. So a lot of things on a graph, the dollar's going down, you have about 103 things going up, butter, eggs, and all that stuff. Now that is to me straight up market manipulation. You're printing more money, you're devaluing the currency in everyone's pocket. Over the past 50 years, the box of fucking cereal has not gotten harder to make. Cardboard is not more difficult to make. The cereal that you put in the bag is not harder to do. It's
more difficult to make. The environmentalists are getting out of control, and a cereal box uses paper, which comes from trees, and you can't cut down trees apparently.
Well, jokes aside, it's the means of production have gotten simpler over the ages, and it's crazy to think that we live in a day and age where things are getting more and more expensive, and that's simply due to the fact that people with sitting behind a computer with a lot of power can press an enter button and devalue your money in your pocket, and they do that regularly. In fact, they've done it this year, heavily. The cost of lumber, whether you want to say it's demand related or whether you want to say it's inflationary related, it's gone up about 4x. Now it's kind of correcting, but we see what happens when markets or when governments start, wildly. Not even governments. The Federal Reserve isn't government. It's its own separate third-party entity.
I see it as government, so we can debate that.
It has no oversight by the president, and
no, it does. They assigned the Federal Reserve chair. The president
they
assigned
a chair, but the Federal Reserve is not. It's a third-party entity. It is a Federal Reserve, but it is not federal, nor is it a reserves. It is a completely separate entity altogether, and we could debate that. But my point is, yeah, there's someone behind a computer that can make your house worth a lot more money, even though it hasn't done a thing. You might not improve your house for 25 years, but the value of the land could increase because of demand, and of course it could also increase because the dollar's getting weaker. I think there's a combination of both going on across multiple markets, but with things as simple as eggs and milk and butter, I think the price of those things should be going down over time, and the cost of things like houses should probably be going up over time depending on demand of the geolocation you're trying to focus on. Like for example, New York City, a lot of people want to live there. Demand is high. People want to put offices there. Demand is high. Is that all market manipulation because of devaluing the dollar? Not necessarily. Is there a combination of the two? Probably, possibly. Now, if you're talking about when COVID hit and the city started, losing, everyone wanted to flee the city, and that's where we're coming from. This is just why the example's so fresh in my head. The local surrounding areas, the low density populations jumped up about 10% overnight. That was just like February into March. Who knows how much higher things went over the course of the year. So I think demand is an important part in some of these more cornerstone elements of your life: cars, houses, stuff like that. But as far as other things that for survival means, I really think that the market manipulation has been working against us.
So we got a couple of questions from the live stream. We do want to give the live
Thank
audience.
you for your question, by the way.
We do want to give the live audience priority, but if you guys don't have any pressing questions, we got a couple of really good questions from the live stream. So the first question was about CoinJoin. I think we answered that already. So here are some of the other ones. So the other question is, and this comes up quite often, and this is a fast one. Can the Lightning Network be added to any other currency software? No, of course. It's all tech, right? So what most of the time happens, when these old coins come up with some new idea, there is a 90% of the time, maybe more, that idea was actually put together by a Bitcoin developer. Either before Bitcoin even existed, and it was realized that it makes no sense. After Bitcoin was existed, and they realized it made no sense. Or it does make sense, but it takes a long time to implement in Bitcoin. So anyone can take that code. It's all public. The ideas are public, and they can build their own currency around it. As an example, Mimblewimble. Mimblewimble is a piece of
software that gives privacy to a cryptocurrency. No one really knows who created it, but it's suspected it is one of the Bitcoin developers, maybe even Satoshi himself. But no one can find a way to add the Mimblewimble privacy features into Bitcoin without a hard fork. And a hard fork means everyone has to do an update. And that's very difficult to do in Bitcoin because it's decentralized. So convincing everyone to upgrade their nodes is almost impossible. Almost. We're not going to talk about the edge case. So Mimblewimble was not going to get into Bitcoin, but hey, anyone can use that, and they created an altcoin or several altcoins for that matter. So of course, the Lightning concept was created by a couple of guys that were Bitcoin, that were pretty much Bitcoiners. And obviously, it takes a lot longer to develop in Bitcoin because, for starters, the transaction malleability bug had to get fixed, and that took years to achieve before you can build out the Lightning. But on other coins, the transaction malleability wasn't a problem. So they were able to implement that stuff kind of earlier. So of course it can be used, but it also works the other way around. Someone could create something from an old coin that turns out to be useful and will eventually be added to Bitcoin. But when I speak to Bitcoin developers, I sometimes have this joke question: has there been anything developed in the old coin space that you would actually add it to Bitcoin? And they usually smile and say no. So contrary to all the stories. So yeah, of course it can be, but it doesn't really matter. And here's a question that comes up a lot. And Joe, I'll let you tackle this one first. Feature of Bitcoin, the SHA-256 encryption, was developed by the U.S. military. Why do we trust it?
Well, that's kind of assuming a lot. Look, there's tons of theories. We don't know who Satoshi is, so of course imagination runs wild. It could be, CIA, PSYOP with, trying to make a one world government in currency, and we could go all up and down this rabbit hole. Yeah, if I had proof that Satoshi was a CIA operative, then yeah, I'd say, I'm out of Bitcoin and I'm, looks like this whole thing ain't gonna work. But we don't have that information. All we know is that the Satoshi coins haven't moved, and if SHA-256 is government, and we find out that that the CIA or some sort of regulatory or sovereign entity is behind all this, then it might change the picture a good bit. But I don't think it is. That's not really something I spend time entertaining. It just really isn't a rabbit hole that will take you anywhere except in circles.
Right. So that's the thing, right? Just because this road was built by the government doesn't mean you can't use the road, right? As much as you hate the government, a road's a road. So it doesn't really matter whether Satoshi was a government agent. I don't believe he was, but I have no idea. And it doesn't matter that the military created SHA-256. Look, we all don't like the military. We don't like what they do. We don't like to see people get killed. We don't like wars. But a lot of the technology that we use today was developed by the military. Now, they develop it for their own nefarious purposes, but it doesn't mean that we can't use it. I mean, like nuclear energy.
Well, it's like oftentimes things are invented and then they use them for nefarious purposes, and they claim the patent on whatever they're gonna, whatever some inventor made, and then the military uses it for 25 years and passes it out.
Right. It's also the other way around. I mean, military. I don't know who created the whole GPS system. It could have been the military, but we all use it in our cars. We wouldn't know how to drive without it. I don't remember driving before GPS. I have no idea how I used to do it. I have no idea how I used to meet up with friends in random places.
I have no idea how people took subways in New York City before there was, information. It's crazy to me.
Well, no, for me, it's just driving. I don't know how to drive to GPS. I still use GPS to get around traffic now. I don't know how people drove without it before. And that's also military technology. But in the case of Bitcoin, it's actually even better because same thing, a lot of people here at Porcfest, I mean, you guys are all, not all, but many people are carrying guns. Many people are carrying knives. I mean, if that gun was manufactured by the government, are you not going to use it? You're not going to buy it? I mean, the thing is it functioning? Is it functioning without the spying element, right? You trust the fact that this gun doesn't have a microchip in it to send all the information about you, like your cell phone does, and you're still carrying that, right? So when it comes to the Bitcoin code, it's been so many eyes have been staring at it And if there was a backdoor to the government and Bitcoin code, it would have been found by now. And I trust the fact that it would have been found based on how many smart people continue in coding it. And 90-something% of Satoshi's code in Bitcoin has already been rewritten by other developers, and that code has been checked and rechecked and triple checked. So as long as people can see what's inside and how that thing is built, it really doesn't matter who invented it.
Yeah. In a way, I agree with that, but I also think that the facts matter as to what we know about Satoshi. We know about his birthday, referencing a couple things: the day that Nixon took us off the gold-silver standard, the day that the May 5th was 1933, when FDR confiscated all the gold. I think maybe also silver, but gold bull. Nefarious actor. He was, in fact, a very altruistic individual creating Bitcoin. So, if you speculate on these things, I can explain to you that stories that might make you emotional about how beautiful Bitcoin is, and then of course we can explore how this could be a big old scam by the freaking Illuminati. So it's just not really a road that I trek too much. I just know the facts about Satoshi and I stick to those. Wallet, Bitcoin hasn't moved from his wallets, and all the other little things. And Craig Wright's a fraud, by the way.
Any other questions from the audience? Otherwise, we have more questions from the live viewers.
All right, let's pick one up on live.
All right. So when will there be smart contracts on Bitcoin? This is another question we've constantly debated. I don't know if you want me to answer it first, Joe, or
I'm gonna let you go with this because I kind of use a scalpel sometimes.
So, how many of you guys are familiar with smart contracts and stuff? Oh boy! Wow, Preston! Holy shit! I almost didn't recognize you.
Preston Syke or something?
No, Ron Preston.
Sorry.
All right, no, we're gonna interview you probably today or tomorrow, man. Stick around. Yeah, why is that a dog, not a mermaid? Okay, so the word smart contracts has been just totally misused. It's such a generic term now. It was originally coined by Nick Szabo before Bitcoin. And just the concept of a smart contract. What's a smart contract? A smart contract is a self-executing contract. And Bitcoin itself is the greatest smart contract. That is, Bitcoin is the smart contract, okay? It's the perfect smart contract because it's A, decentralized, and B, it doesn't involve physical space. It takes place completely in the digital realm. Now, the insanity of what Ethereum convinced is that every single transaction needs to be a decentralized smart contract. To me, a soda machine is a smart contract. You stick $1 into a soda machine, and it automatically knows to dispense you the soda. That's a smart contract. We've had it long before Bitcoin and long before crypto. So smart contracts are not new to me. The only new thing that people are going crazy over is that smart contracts need to be somehow decentralized because you're being censored. I wish the government censored more Coca-Cola transactions, right? They're bad for you. Before Coca-Cola sues me, maybe I shouldn't have said that. I don't drink them. So you guys saw that video with the football player, right? Right. I don't want that sugar. So that's the view that soda machine transaction needs to be decentralized, but people don't realize how data heavy decentralization is. The Ethereum blockchain is now 10 terabytes in size. YouTube was able to store all this video and that, people think data storage is cheap. It's not cheap. Okay, go try to store 10 terabytes worth of data. Sure, you can go to
a note. You can't even sync a note.
Right.
First of all, you have to download 10 terabytes worth of data. That's going to take you a little while.
If, and that's the if. Like,
Yeah.
we're not even talking about like it's a huge if.
Now, you can probably go to Best Buy. I'm sure they have 10 terabyte hard drives now. I think they were a little hard to get 5 years ago. I think they're available now. But the Ethereum blockchain is going to be 20 terabytes in size probably by next year. And then 100 terabytes in size potentially the year after that, right? Who's storing all that data, right? And if you're not storing it, then it's a centralized system and you're dependent on them. So the whole concept of smart contracts on the blockchain tell you that every single transaction is so important that it needs to be decentralized and stored forever and referenced forever and protected forever by a decentralized network, which is crazy because very few transactions require, very few contracts require this kind of security and this kind of decentralization. And if that contract requires interaction in the physical world, even land property, it's an interaction in the physical world. Your healthcare records may not have an interaction in the physical world. Your health records may only be in the digital world. So maybe there is a need for a blockchain there because it doesn't have a connection to the physical realm. But at the same time, you don't want all of your medical records backed up by Vitalik Buterin because eventually he'll be the only one running the node, right? So who's going to store them? Who's responsible for them? Like the whole concept of decentralized smart contracts is, I believe, is kind of insane. They make no sense. But centralized smart contracts, sure, but then you don't need a blockchain for them. Because we've already had them for a long time. So the question people need to ask is not whether Bitcoin will have smart contracts, as to why do smart contracts need to be decentralized? Because the only reason it does is if they need to be censorship resistant. And very few contracts need to be censorship resistant. Bitcoin transactions need to be censorship resistant. Your payment needs to be censorship resistant. It doesn't need a middleman, but middlemen aren't always bad. They're not always bad, and they're not always expensive. And Bitcoin, the ability to eliminate the middleman will make those middlemen cheaper and more efficient.
You know, I also add to that, you know, and I think this is kind of a little bit of a off the side, but the Oracle problem. In order for a smart contract, a decentralized smart contract to execute, and Tone, correct me if I'm, you know, going overboard here. You need what's called an oracle, and so you need basically something to determine that, you know, say two people bet on a basketball game, you know, and you need that smart contract to execute in decentralized fashion to pay out the winner. What you have is the oracle problem. You need some sort of arbiter of that contract, decentralized, to say Joe won the bet against Tone, so automatically execute the winnings in that escrow account to Joe. Now, once you start talking about oracles, you start talking about points of failure and trust. And that is pretty much one of the biggest, most wild things that Bitcoiners love to run away from. So that's another thing, like why I really just don't believe in ETH and all these other you know, coins trying to promise that they have solutions to smart contracts and solutions to the oracle problem.
Right. There is an oracle problem with smart contracts because you need in order for that contract to execute, the system, the AI system, which is another buzzword, needs to know what the right answer is. If there was a conflict, even something as simple as a basketball game. This was, well, hey, we need a decentralized way to pay out gambling bets. I bet on the outcome of a basketball game, and so for some reason, I think it's better that Reddit users determine the winner and not ESPN. I'm not sure why. And that's a way more technologically complicated problem instead of just going to ESPN.
Exactly. Now you need a blockchain searching for real world.
And the other thing is, like, if you don't trust ESPN because they usually announce it first, just wait an extra 10 minutes for other other entities. Like I'm sorry, but like people say, like, no, I need to pay my employees every 5 minutes. That's why I need micropayments. I'm like, why do you need to pay your employees every 5 minutes? Like, is it a problem if they get paid daily? Is it a problem if they get paid weekly? Now, there could be instances where you want to pay per second, but you also don't have to charge per second. So, for example, my cell phone plan charges me by the penny, actually. They charge me by the penny for every megabyte of data I use. Every time I use a megabyte of data, they charge me a penny. But they still bill me once a month. They could bill me every day when, maybe one day they will with Lightning on Bitcoin. Also streaming, Netflix can implement this one day, which is kind of cool. Something like, hey, you know what? You can start watching this movie, and if you don't like this movie, stop watching it, and then we're only going to charge you for the time that you watched it. You can kind of do that one day with Lightning and Bitcoin micropayments. They can charge you by the minute of a movie, and if you don't like it after 30 minutes, you only 50. That'd be kind of cool, I think. Something like that. But yeah, so but you don't need these third-party oracles because they provide trust and they could have incentives to. All these altcoiners make up the story in order to sell their currency. And by the way, the Bitcoin developers, like I keep saying earlier, they have to pay attention to. They have to make Bitcoin scale. They have to make Bitcoin private. They have to, make sure they don't break the current stability of Bitcoin of it being, functioning every 10 minutes. Bitcoin can't just say, hey guys, we're going to shut down the system to do our upgrade. Like that can't happen, right? So they have to build out this infrastructure without screwing up the actual store of value and unconfiscatability and censorship resistance. So if I'm wrong, and every single transaction needs to be decentralized, every single contract, every single thing needs to be decentralized. And eventually somebody will build it on Bitcoin. But again, until it's actually proven, it's not a priority. Like Ethereum became popular because everyone was building their altcoins on top of Ethereum with the ICO boom. But that functionality now exists on Bitcoin with the liquid sidechain. It's just that very few know about it, very few understand it, and very few use it because Ethereum has made it easier. But it doesn't mean that that functionality isn't there on Bitcoin. But the reason that functionality on Bitcoin came so late is because, why would, you don't know that it's needed. If Bitcoin developers were immediately prioritizing every new idea that comes out in the crypto space, they would get nothing done. Because most of those ideas go nowhere. But when an idea like Ethereum, is still, to me, a plague on the world, continues to be, usable, that functionality, it basically proves to the world, maybe they did build something that people will use. Then it will come up on top of Bitcoin. It's kind of like what happened back in the day with TiVo. Who remembers TiVo? One hand goes up. You know DVR? How about that? Who knows DVR? Where you can rewind live TV if you watch TV. So TiVo initially invented that technology, and then the cable company's like, oh, this is useful. We're just going to steal it. And then there was a big lawsuit between TiVo and the cable companies because they inherently put that tech into the cable box, and then no one would buy the TiVo box. And that's what happens. If you come up with something that a lot of people use, in that case, there was some copyright laws that the cable companies kind of finagled, and they got sued by TiVo, and eventually, TiVo made some money on it. But in the crypto space, there is really no copyright law, right? It's just code. And they can try, Vitalik can try and copyright, or some other crypto can try and copyright it, but by doing that, they're only proving how centralized they are. So they can't actually copyright it, because then they're proving their centralization. So they can't copyright it in order to sell the decentralized bullshit, but that also means that Bitcoin can adopt it, or someone could build it as a side chain to Bitcoin. So if the future of 1,000 other cryptocurrencies, or every single person having their own money, or every single company having their own money, if that is actually the future, you will be able to build it on top of Bitcoin as a side chain if you choose to, but it's just, harder to profit on that. When it's on top of Bitcoin. And the other issue is when you choose to build your company's
self-private money or your personal self-private money on top of Bitcoin, it means that you actually understand Bitcoin. But those that actually understand Bitcoin generally choose not to go this unethical route. And that's another reason why a lot of this stuff is not built on Bitcoin, because to build it on Bitcoin, you have to understand Bitcoin. And when you understand Bitcoin, you realize, why are you printing your own money?
Are we trying to wrap this up? Or?
We could. We've been on for about an hour 20. We can wrap this up, recharge all of our devices, and be back with some interviews.
Yeah, we're gonna. I want to say thanks to everyone that stuck around and hung out with us for a bit. I hope we got a lot of this stuff answered. And I know we went pretty much over and above a lot of these questions. So I hope you're able to retain some of that. But we're happy to provide you a schedule, and we're going to be doing speeches all day. And if you want to learn about Bitcoin, you won't be bored while you're at Porcfest here. So happy to continue to serve, and thank you all so much for coming over. And then Tony, I'll let you kind of say goodbye to your people.
All right, thanks guys. Yeah, I actually let me see if the camera's gonna follow me around. I'm gonna zoom the camera out. Cool, we're zoomed out. Let me know if my camera's gonna be following me. Probably want to look at it. Let's see if the camera has focus on me, so it should rise, sort of. How about you get up and start walking? Oh yeah, it's on you. Just to walk around, because that camera will rotate, so people can see Porcfest.
This thing will.
Yeah, I think it's like moving around, but don't walk too fast. See, it's following you.
Where am I going?
Just so that the camera spins around, so people on live stream can see what they're missing. Up here in New Hampshire.
We got some tents. We got some good stuff.
Yeah, I mean it has a parameter limit, so when it stops moving around, yeah. Every single chair was full when we started, so that's why we started answering live audience questions. Oh, you're still connected to the microphone, so if you speak, the live audience hears you. Yeah.
Oh wait, it stopped.
Yeah, it doesn't go. It doesn't spin forever, so you want to go backwards, kind of, because otherwise it's kind of stuck.
Oh man, do I need to go all the way around?
You may have to go all the way around the other way.
I feel like a dog right now that just got
Well, walk a little bit away from the camera.
Wire limit.
Yeah.
There we go. Looks like
Is it following you again?
it went up.
Hold on. I'm gonna unfreeze it. Where's my camera setting?
Yeah, my mic is blowing directly into the wind.
Oh no, it's okay. The wind doesn't matter. You have a wind protector on. All right, there you go. It's following you again.
Yeah, every chair was filled earlier, because now it looks like now it looks like we could go to a mental institution for speaking to an unreasonable number of empty chairs. But
Well, yeah, I just want to say thank you again so much.
thank you guys.
All right. Thank you for the live stream, guys, for hanging around with us. We're gonna go ahead and cut the stream.